This video is brought to you by the good folks at KEH. Not only is KEH the oldest and biggest at what they do, buying and selling exclusively used camera gear of all sorts since 1979, but they do it well, with integrity and both a 180-day warranty and 21-day return policy, free shipping on transactions over $49. Which is why, because they make it as futz-free a process as possible, they are our go-to whenever we are looking to fund new purchases by selling our own gear or buying that special used piece of kit properly graded and checked when we want to go quirky or old school. Check them out using the special links and 5% discount or bonus code in the video description below. Thank you, KEH. The name Walter Mandler, like Oscar Barnack and Max Barrick, with whom in fact he worked, will forever be intertwined with Leica. Think, for example, Summicron M35mm f2, designed by Mandler. Summilux M35 1.4, Mandler. Summilux 50mm f1.4, M, Noctilux M51.0, Summilux 75 1.4, Mandler, Mandler, and Mandler. In fact, over the span of his 38-year career with Leica beginning in 1947, he designed more than 45 lenses for that company. But beyond M lenses, beyond earlier Leica screw mount lenses, beyond many of the later R lenses for which he was also responsible, perhaps the lenses that he most enjoyed designing were not meant for most Leica shooters. One lens in particular, maybe his favorite, maybe even more than the 75mm Summilux, was Leica's first ever apochromatic lens, designed actually as an ultra-high resolution aerial reconnaissance telephoto lens for the US Navy in the early 1970s. It was only after it was declassified that Leica introduced a commercial version of it in 1975 as the legendary Leica Apotellet R 180mm f3.4, often regarded as one of the greatest lenses of all time. And for a day or two last month, courtesy of our friends at KEH, I got to shoot with it. Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for Three Blind Men and an Elephant. And while I am not a vintage lens guy per se, some vintage lenses, canonical lenses, really fire the imagination. The Apotellet R 183.4, originally designed for their reflex system, is one of them. Not only because of the origin story, not only because of its traditional Leica build quality, not only because of its era-defining optical performance, but because there is nothing like it today. And there should be. That is to say, I think there is a gigantic hole in every major full-frame manufacturer's prime lens lineup beyond 85 or 90 millimeters, maybe up to Sony's or Zeiss's 135, a modestly configured, no excuses, ultra-high performance, accessibly priced, compact, relatively lightweight mid-telephoto prime. I'm talking somewhere between 180 and 250 millimeter f3.5 to say 4.5, like the Canon FL200 f4.5 I bought and used while in high school. That was an FL lens, right? Yeah. That was then, this is now, 70 to 200 zooms rule. I get it. The latest 70 to 200 2.8s from Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, and Canon can shame primes of just a generation or two ago at the lower end of that focal range. But every single one of those zooms is big, heavy, and expensive. The 70 to 200 f4s, I don't know of a single one out there nearly as good optically as the 2.8s. Not as good as the Apotellet. Maybe Sony's FE70 to 200 f4. I underestimated that lens once. I'll put a link in the description below. But I didn't have it on hand while I had the Apotellet. And the question I have is this. Why pay for any of the essentially infinite focal lengths below 200 millimeters in that zoom that I don't intend to use? I prefer to leverage the 47 or 60 megapixel sensors I have to turn the 85 and 90 millimeter lenses I have into anything up to 135 or even 150 millimeter field of view, and then pack a much smaller, optimized for just the one focal length, 200 millimeter f4 or precisely a 183.4. I'd be happy with that, with which I can pull the same stunt, effectively giving me an upper limit of 270 or even 300 millimeters. Of course, You may argue, well, heck you have the Apo 180 3.4. What else do you want? Glad you asked. First, I want autofocus. Second, I want lens image stabilization. Third, I want the latest optical designs, advances in material sciences, and computer-aided manufacturing to generate even higher performance in a less expensive, lighter weight, if not necessarily smaller. I mean, the autofocus motors have to go somewhere. Because what I learned when I borrowed the Apotellet R 183.4 from KEH is this. It is a fabulous lens. But even at infinity, the distance for which it was optimized originally, now you understand why, was outperformed by Panasonic's excellent $2,400 image-stabilized Lumix S Pro 7200 2.8. This is a critical detail for me, although by now many of you are familiar with my particular use case for that length and longer. Biting edge-to-edge sharpness and pop for urban landscapes, printed large. My images composed as invitations to viewers to come in closer than normal viewing distances to see and feel the textures, shapes, and juxtapositions of the city. I shot both lenses on a tripod-mounted 47.5 megapixel Lumix S1R with in-body image stabilization and found that while taken on its own, the Apotellet was beautiful. Side by side, the S Pro was better. The lack of autofocus mattered. The lack of lens IS mattered because when you go long, IBIS is insufficient. And even when they were close, the Panasonic's optical design, computer-controlled manufacturing, and liberal use of the most advanced materials still combined to beat the Apo. The Pani wasn't as lovely in hand. It was more awkward to hold. And at a tad over 67 ounces, we're talking almost 4 pounds. Really, almost 2 kilos. It weighed just about twice as much as the Apotellet with a pair of lens adapters, the R to M and M to L. The S Pro 7200 f4 is significantly smaller and lighter than its big brother at 2.2 pounds, 1 kilo, basically the same as the Apotellet with those adapters, almost 5 ounces heavier than the Apotellet without them. Put differently, I've learned, perhaps it is more precise to say I've had reaffirmed, by comparing the 50-year-old Apotellet 183.4 to the 4-year-old S Pro 7200 2.8, that I've reached an inflection point in my photography life where 1. Schlepping is more annoying than ever and has moved higher up in my list of priorities of things to avoid. 2. Corner-to-corner sharpness and punch for images printed up to 5 feet on the long side today, as much as 20 feet on the long side in the future if I have my way, both viewed at closer than normal viewing distances, as I said earlier, are important to me given what and how I shoot. 3. I recognize that the current state-of-the-art in lens performance, I'm talking just the last couple of years, has changed what one can and ought to expect from zooms. But the best primes are still capable of even higher performance in smaller, lighter packages for a given price point. 4. I understand and embrace the idea that the true value of high-resolution sensors for what I do is to use them instead of longer glass for reach. 5. I understand and embrace the fact that autofocus, IBIS, and lens IS are critical for coaxing the most from a lens of this focal length or longer. 6. With a kit of 18, 24, 35, 90, and 200 primes, I'd be done choosing to rent if I needed longer. I'm only missing the 200. 7. I could make do with an 18, 24-70 and 200 in pinch, maybe with a 51.4 when I truly wanted to go shallower or shoot in very low light. A full frame lens in the neighborhood of 180 to 200, 225, 250, somewhere between 2.8 and 4, I think closer to 4, as I just said, is the only lens I'm missing. But finally, 8. I'm used to being a statistical outlier, so I may only be a market of 1. Then again, you can buy an Apotel at 183.4 in excellent condition from our friends at KEH, end of the year, kind of nice to treat yourself, with a money-back guarantee and a 21-day return policy for less than half the price of the S Pro 70-200 2.8. We're talking just over $1,000 with caps. And in doing so, give yourself not only a lovely piece of glass, but a wonderful piece of history. A big shout out to KEH for sponsoring this video, a great resource for finding just this kind of gear. Check them out using the special links and 5% discount or bonus code in the video description below. Thank you, KEH. If you like what you've seen here today, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, join the conversation in the comments section below because this is an exceptional audience. If you'd like help with a portfolio review, gear selection, finding or honing your artistic voice, sign up for a one-on-one mentoring video call via Zoom at 3bmep.com/booking. Finally, please consider supporting our work by using the no-cost-to-you affiliate links down below, sending us coffee money via PayPal, or most especially, joining us on Patreon, links down below as well. However you choose to support us, as always, we thank you for it.